Chapter 27 of Bunyip Land. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Bunyip Land by George Manville Fenn. Chapter 27. How I Found that I Had a Fellow Prisoner. I've had a good many headaches in my time, but nothing to compare with the fearful throbbing that seemed as if I were receiving blow after blow upon my temples when I began to come to myself. I was stupefied and confused, and it took a long time before I recovered sufficiently to comprehend my position. By degrees, though, I was able to bear my eyes unclosed for sufficiently long at a time to see that I was in some kind of hut, and as I realised all this it seemed that I must be still a prisoner, and that all my long journeying since was only a dream. I began wondering where Jimmy could be, and the doctor, and Jack Penny. And then my head throbbed so violently that I closed my eyes, feeling at the same time that I had no arms, no legs, nothing but an inanimate body and a head that ached with terrible violence as I lay there half stunned. After a time I must have grown a little more collected, for I awoke to the fact that I was tightly bound with twisted grass, hand and foot, that I was certainly in a hut, quite a large hut, built of bamboo and mats, and that behind me the light shone in, and somewhere close by the sound arose of a person sleeping heavily. I tried to turn round, but the movement caused such intense pain that I desisted for a time, till my anxiety to know more about my position forced me to make a fresh effort, and I swung myself over, making my head throb so that I gladly closed my eyes, while I wrenched my arms and wrists that were tied behind my back so harshly that I became quite aware of the fact that I had limbs, as well as an inert body and a throbbing head. When I could unclose my eyes again I saw that it was getting near sundown, and that the sunshine was lighting up the limbs of the great trees beneath which the native village to which I had been brought was built. From where I lay I looked across a broad opening, around which was hut after hut, with its open door facing towards the centre. There was very little sign of life around, but twice in the distance I saw a black figure come out of the doorway of a hut and disappear amongst the trees, but it was some time before I could make out from whence the heavy breathing came that I heard. As far as I could judge, it was from someone just outside the entrance to the hut where I lay, but no one was visible, and it seemed to me that if I could untie the rope that held my wrists and legs, there was nothing to prevent my walking out and making my escape. I had just come to this conclusion when there was a rustling noise as of a stick passing over twigs and leaves, and a spear fell down across the doorway. The next instant I saw a black arm and shoulder come forward, the spear was picked up, and the black arm disappeared. Then there was a shuffling sound as of someone settling down to a fresh position, and all was silent, for the heavy breathing had ceased. "That's my guard," I said to myself, "and he has been asleep." Simple words, but they sent a throb of joy through me, and I began to wonder where the doctor was, and what Jack Penny was doing. Then I thought about Jimmy, and that as soon as I was missed he would be sure to hunt me out. My head began to throb once more horribly, but by degrees the fit died off, and I found myself thinking again of escape. How foolish of me not to have had a dog, I thought. Why, if I had one like Gyp, he would have tracked me out by this time. They'll find me sooner or later, I said to myself, so I need not regret being without a dog. But suppose the savages should attack our little party and make them prisoners too? Now, this was quite a new idea to me. The doctor and I had thought out a good many possibilities, but that we who had come in search of one who was a prisoner should be ourselves made captives hardly ever occurred to me. That would be a sorry end to our voyage, I thought, and I lay gazing out across the open space, wondering in a dreamy, misty way whether my poor father had been attacked and captured as I had been, and whether I should be kept a prisoner and have to live for the rest of my life among savages. My head was not so painful then, and I began to feel that if it would only leave off aching, and my poor mother would not be so troubled at this second loss, that such a life would be better than being killed, especially as there would always be the chance of escape. I think I must have sunk into a sort of doze or half stupor just then, for the scene at which I was gazing grew dim, and it seemed to me that it must all have been a dream about my meeting with that black boy, and once more I suppose I slept. How long I slept I cannot tell, but I can recall being in a confused dream about home, and going with Jimmy to a neighbour's sheep run where there was a dog, and Jimmy coaxed him away with a big piece of meat, which he did not give to the dog, but stuck on the end of his spear and carried it over his shoulder, with the animal whining and snuffling about, but which was to be reserved until several wallabies had been hunted out, for that was the aim of the afternoon. It seemed very tiresome that dog should be snuffling about me and scratching and pawing at me, and I was about to tell Jimmy to give the poor brute the meat and let him go, when his cold nose touched my face, and I started awake, trembling in every limb. The darkness was intense, and for some minutes, try how I would, I could not think. All sorts of wild fancies rushed through my brain, and I grew more and more confused, but I could not think reasonably, and make out where I was and what it all meant. The past seemed to be gone, and I only knew that I was there, lying with my arms and legs dead, and my head throbbing. There seemed to be nothing else. Yes, there was. My dream. It all came with a flash just where it left off, and Jimmy had coaxed the dog away, and it was here annoying me. But why was it dark? There was dead silence then, following upon the light pattering sound of some animal's feet, and with my brain rapidly growing clearer, I began to arrange my thoughts. I had even got so far as to recollect dropping off asleep, and I was concluding that I had slept right on into the darkness of night, when there was the pattering of feet again, and I knew now that it was no fancy, for some animal had touched me, though it was not likely to be the dog that Jimmy had coaxed away to go wallaby hunting. There was a curious snuffling noise now, first in one part of the hut and then in another. Some animal then must have come into the hut, and this, whatever it was, had been touching and had awakened me. What could it be? I wondered as I tried to think what creature was likely to be prowling about in the darkness. It could not be a wild pig, and my knowledge of animal life taught me that it was not likely to be any one of the cat family, for they went so silently about, while the pattering steps of this creature could be plainly heard. We had encountered nothing in our journey that suggested itself as being likely, and I was beginning to perspire rather profusely with something very much like utter fright, when I heard the creature, whatever it was, come close up and begin snuffling about my legs. It's coming up to my face, I thought, with a chill of horror, seeming to paralyse me,